These are pictures here of the goosenecks of the San Juan, and we took a trip down the San Juan and Colorado River from Mexican Hat to Lee's Ferry, and we did this with a commercial guide. He went by the name of Moki Mac, and he had all the equipment and everything, so this is the way we did it, and this we did in June of 1956. Another picture of the goosenecks of the San Juan. This is looking down at the river where there are some pretty steep cliffs straight down. These two rocks sit up on the edge of the ridge, and I think these are at Bluff, Utah. This is the actual beginning of our raft trip, where we had to all get there and pump up our rafts and get all of our equipment stashed in the boats, and everything had to be tied to the boat. When you got into the boat, you had to stuff your feet down underneath some of the bags and stuff that were tied in the boat. There were 8 boats all together, and they would hold 8 people, and there were 6 of us, so we rode in one boat by ourselves. This is a picture of the guys on the back of the boat rowing and steering. This is looking back at the river, and this is in the goosenecks area. I failed to mention my cousin Kenneth Eltsey went on this trip with me. This is just looking up at the canyon walls as we go by. This river is saturated with sand and silt, and as it rolls down the river, the sand will collect there and make ridges which cause waves in the river, and they can be quite high at times, and usually you'd see these waves come up, and so you'd steer the boat over to go over the waves, and they'd level out on you just as you got there. But one time everybody was laying on the bottom, on the sides of the boat, leaving the whole steering to me, and one of these things came up, and I steered the boat over there, and it didn't go away, and it just washed water all over these guys sleeping. You shouldn't have seen how fast they woke up. While we were on the San Juan River, he had let the guys get out in the river as long as they had their life jackets on. And a couple of the guys got caught in an eddy. And they kept getting farther and farther back there, and boy, we began to get worried because there's no way that we can stop these boats. And finally they started coming, and they just couldn't swim hard enough to get out of this eddy is their problem. They just went around in a circle. Here's another picture of them in the water. These are just views of the way the canyon walls change as you go down the river. This is another view of one of the side canyons. There's a little arch up on the top of the rim. this point, the canyon opens up into what's known as Paiute Flats. And if you were smart enough to read the river, you could find the channel where the water was deep enough for the boats, but we weren't, so we had to pull the boats ashore. At Paiute Flat, there were some Indians that lived there, and Moki Mac took off and tried to find where they were at the present time, and he did locate them. So as we were walking over to this group of Indians, this is the little boy and his sister tending the sheep. He's coming over to get his picture taken. This is Moki Mac with the Indian squaw, and he knew them quite well because he came down here so often, and he always brought them little things when he'd come through. This is a typical family out in front of their house or lean-to. This is the old chief that was there. This is a typical summer dwelling for the Indians. Those strips hanging from the roof there above the lady is their jerky. Just below Paiute Flats, the river took this little division around this island here, and he sent the first boat over on the far side, and there was a rock down there, and they didn't negotiate it properly, and their boat tipped over. So Moki sent the rest of us around this side of the thing. Now, there's not as much water coming down this side, so it's more difficult to get through than where there's more water. We went through this area first, I think, and so I got off on the island and came back to take the pictures of the others coming down through here. Getting drinking water was a real problem, and I've grouped some of those pictures here together, but one of the places we had to get water was up on this little shelf above the river. Each time we stopped to get water, we had to collect about 55 gallons for this group of people. So everybody's out there dipping with their canteens and stuff to fill all the containers that we had. This is another view of them collecting water. This was rapids here, and he had this one-man boat, and he let everybody that wanted to go down this rapids in the one-man boat. So he's for quite a while there getting through this area. Bringing the big boats through was a bit of a hassle because we had to stay away from one spot, and I don't think it's here, but we had to stay away where the water came over a big rock, which is the way that the other boat got tipped over. It's another view of going down that rapids. Another place we had to collect water was off from this little spring that trickled down the wall. What you had to do is hold your arm up against the wall and let the water drip off of your elbow, and somebody would hold a cup under there to catch it. 55 gallons went this way. It's a boring thing for the rest of them that weren't active. When we reached the Colorado River, the river was wide and slow, and there weren't that many rapids associated with it. So the boats just sort of collected together. We camped on this little sandbar here one night, and everybody had to do something to put on a program. These are some pictographs that are along the riverbank as we were going by there. One of the things with this pictograph that you need to notice is the bottom hand on the left. If you'll notice, it has 6 fingers. And if you have a small group of people that intermarry and stuff, these are some of the kinds of deformities that form from inbreeding. This is Rainbow Bridge, and in no way can you depict the size of that bridge with pictures. You can sort of visualize it in that the Washington Monument can sit under that bridge. It was a 6-mile hike up the canyon from the river to the bridge. At the base of the Rainbow Bridge, they had a registration book. And I'd been down here hiking in from Rainbow Lodge a few years earlier. In fact, it was in 1945. And the same registration book was still here at this time. In 1949, my registration number was 6,668, and this time it was 11,503. Kenny's number was 11,532. At this point in the river is the border of Utah and Colorado. At this point is where the Glen Canyon Dam is built. The doctor warned us about getting sunburn. He says, I've got exactly enough medicine to treat 3 sunburn patients. And there were, I think, 48 of us all total. At one point down in the river, we tied all the boats together, and it was up to the outside 2 boats had to do all the steering. And while we were in this tied together, we got caught in an eddy, and we just floated around and around, and so we decided to eat lunch before we tried to get out. This is our group that went down the Colorado there. This was our last camp. One of the things that went with this trip was a big dinner at Art Green's cafe and restaurant that was up the road a ways after we took off. And he said, I just want to warn you, that if you drink this water here, you won't get your meal at Hart Greens. This is the Navajo Bridge that goes across the Colorado River here just south of Lee's Ferry, and this is the beginning of Marble Canyon on the Colorado. This is another view of the bridge. This is a picture looking up or down Marble Canyon. If you notice the color of the water compared to previous pictures that we've seen after Glen Canyon Dam was in there, there's quite a difference. Looking the other direction, well, this would be looking south, it looks like, down Marble Canyon. And this is looking across the canyon. You can just barely see the line where the Colorado River goes through there. And along that cliff there someplace is where they built the Dugway going up to Page. In 1956 of the spring, this really happened before that San Juan River trip. I had planned this spring vacation trip going to go up into Idaho and observe winter logging at a logging camp. And the day before we were supposed to leave, the guy called and says, "Don't come." He says, "We had a big thaw and you can't get in there at all." So I was stuck with a trip planned, all these guys going and no place to go. So I said, "Well, there's one place we can go, and that's to southern Utah." So I told Gene, "I don't know where we're going or when we'll be back, but we're taking off." And so our first stop here was at Manti, and that's the Manti Temple with the sun rising on it. This is looking up the road to the Big Rock Candy Mountain. Looking up at the Big Rock Candy Mountain, and they have a lemonade spring up there. If you hike up there, it looks more like root beer to me. We didn't have any particular thing to do, and uranium was discovered not too long ago, and this is Marysvale, and it was one of the first places that uranium was discovered. So we climbed up all those roads up there trying to find a uranium mine that was open, and then they wouldn't let us go in. So our next stop was to be Bryce Canyon. These are all pictures around Bryce Canyon, and I haven't the faintest idea whether they're in any sort of order or not. These are all just views taken from the rim driving around Bryce Canyon. We took a hike down Navajo Trail, and I think this is taken on the trail. This is a little tunnel they've dug through one of the rims there. This is looking up at those two arches. This is looking up at some of the pinnacles from the bottom. This is looking up at Queen Anne and her court. Some more spires from the bottom. This is looking back up at the rim. Oh, we got some kids up there on top of one of those things. This is the bridge at Bryce Canyon. This is the tallest Indian in the world. We stopped on this anytime. We stopped here anytime we were through this way. Our next stop was over at Zion's Park, and we camped in the campground there, and the guys walked around the road there singing songs, and they said that we're going to keep this camp up all night long. By 9 o'clock, they were in bed sound asleep. This is some of the cliffs there at Zion's Park. When we got to Weeping Rock, this pool is right at the side of the parking lot, and they decided that's as far as we're going swimming. And there was a car pulling out of the parking lot when we drove in, and I sat there watching the cars go up and down the street, and nobody pulled in there until they got out. I did coax them into hiking up to Weeping Rock. This is a picture of the Great White Throne. I think this is a sort of side view of the Great White Throne. Coming home, we went over through the desert to Delta and up to Great Salt Lake and home, and these are some sand dunes we ran into east of Holden. Oh, sorry, I missed that. West of Holden. I don't think these are quite as good as the pink sand dunes. We reached Great Salt Lake just at dusk, and this is standing out there on the shore of the Great Salt Lake before we went home. The next year, our spring vacation trip was the April the 18th through the 20th, 1957, and we went over to Arches and Bridges National Monument, and we also went out to Dead Horse Point and to the Coldwater Geyser here. I guess I was trying to conserve film. That picture in the back is the bridge over the Green River at Green River, Utah. This is it's starting to come down a bit now. This is the water that's running down from the geyser back into the Green River. This is at Dead Horse Point, looking down into the Colorado and the Green River. These are views taken from the top of the rim there. We rolled rocks off the top of this cliff, and that's the best place for rolling rocks I ever found. The biggest problem was you couldn't find rocks that you could roll to the edge. Yeah, it's pretty good. I don't know for sure whether this is the Green or the Colorado River, which one it is. Our next stop is Arches National Monument, and this is a picture taken of the delicate arch showing how it sits up on that ledge there. This is everybody standing on the arch. This is looking down in the canyon from the ledge that the arch is sitting on. I can't remember all the names of these arches, so we'll just look at them. We're actually looking through an arch here. This is a parade of elephants, and I didn't do very good sequencing of the pictures here because the previous picture is at the opposite end of the monument from this one. This is Double O Arch, and it's at the end of a trail that goes to a lot of arches. And on this trip, somebody had stuck a cardboard sign up there and handwritten on it this message: no beer, no cans, no ice cream, no watermelons, no rinds, no soda pop, no bottles, no escalators, no taxi service, no gas fumes, no red caps, no tips. I guess these are some of the things that you would enjoy having on this trip. Our next stop was at Bridges National Monument, and this is the Chama Bridge, and we got here late in the evening, so we camped right here, and at the time there was a water hole there called Zeke's Bathtub. So after dark, the guys all went out for a swim. This is a group of us standing in front of this bridge. This is our camp, and we usually have some lazy bums. At this time, the road only went to that one bridge, and so we hiked up to this Sipapoo Bridge, and there are some Indian ruins along the cliffs by this bridge, and we hiked up to those to take a look at them. This is looking along the cliff to some of those ruins. We would have hiked to the other bridge, but we didn't have time. Those Indian ruins are up on cliffs similar to that you can see through the bridge. The next year we took a trip to Capitol Reef, and on the way we stopped at this Western gypsum plant where they make plasterboard. And that trip was on April the 3rd to the 5th in 1958. This plant produced about 12 million square feet of plasterboard a month. This is the plasterboard. 2 pieces of paper come through rollers, and the gypsum paste is squoze between them and with rollers, and then it goes along this conveyor belt until it reaches its initial set. One thing I forgot to mention on the previous picture, that on the left-hand side was the dry kiln after it come and was cut to size. Once it's hardened enough, it goes off onto rollers, where it's chopped up and to lengths and moved over and back through the dry kiln. As you can see on the right, some boards going over. This is another view just at the end of that roller there. One of the fellows I went to college with was the maintenance supervisor for this plant, and he arranged to take us through. Here we went on to Capitol Reef, and as if you'll notice, the road is dirt, and it was dirt for about 35 miles to get into Capitol Reef. These are just pictures of the Capitol Reefs as we're coming into the park. The pictures I've got here were actually taken on 2 different trips, but I was having too much trouble trying to separate them. There's a town of Fruta is in the bottom of the canyon at this point, and this is the old schoolhouse. Another view with our professor approaching the school. These are the pictographs that are on the wall not far from the schoolhouse, and you'll notice all these pock marks on the wall are from bullets being fired up there. This is the natural bridge at Capitol Reef. It's not an easy task to get up on this bridge, as there's some pretty precarious cliffs and drop-offs that you have to manipulate. This is showing some more of them up there on the top. These are pictures as you're going over to the Grand Wash. There's a picture in the Grand Wash there. This is just another picture of the walls. This is actually in the Grand Wash of Capitol Reef, but it resembles the Great White Throne in Zion's Park. Here's just some flowers along the way. We camped here in the Grand Wash, and we hiked up here to Cassidy's Arch, and this is on the trail going up to Cassidy's Arch. This is a view looking down from higher up at the trail going up there. This is looking from the top down to where we camped at night. This is a view of Cassidy's Arch. This girl lives in Fruta, and she rode out here on her horse in the evening to check out all these guys. I don't think they were about to be checked out. There's always horsing around anytime there's a sand dune. This is a picture in the Grand Wash as the canyon is narrowing down. This is a picture of the Grand Wash where it comes into the Fremont River. And we decided that we were going to hike back up the Fremont River instead of hiking back up the Grand Wash. They warned us that we'd have to wade the river 4 times, and we thought, oh, fiddle, we're good climbers, we can get around, but there was just no way of getting around these wading, and that water was cold. always tell a story. It was snowing while we were doing this, but I find from this it didn't start to snow until a little bit after. My legs were so numb by the time I got to the last fording, I didn't know whether I wanted to make it or not. This is my brother, Frank. He went on most of the spring vacation trips with me because I couldn't depend on anybody in the ward to do it. I'm not really sure whether this is Coab Canyon or not, but we hiked up Coab Canyon. These are pictures that are taken looking back as we were going up the canyon. The road now goes down along the Fremont River through this canyon here. Thought that I had some pictures inside of this canyon, but I guess it must have been too dark to take the pictures. But this is one place where the polygamists used to hide out when the government was trying to get them. Out from the mouth of the Coab Canyon, which is up in the cliffs above Fruta. Obviously, this is a picture taken from another trip, but you can notice all those ribbon-type things up there, which could make very good hiding places. And the picture that we took previously was taken from, you can see the dip in there, and you had to come down all that cliff down there. There is a trail. When we got to Fruta, we got the ranger to drive us back to where our camp was. Now, this looks like another picture that didn't happen on that trip, because that night it was so cold the guys didn't want to stay there. They wanted to go on, and I tried to tell them there isn't going to be any better place, but they insisted, so we left. And just on the left of this picture, you can see the canyon that we drove through. This is the road going through that canyon, and there's big signs that warn you about going through there when it's raining. This is a picture from a different trip, and this is our truck that we used to go camping in all the time. As we were coming down this dugway, we saw this car down in the bottom of the ravine. Now, this angle of the picture doesn't make it look like it's very far, but it was quite a ways down. This is a bridge over the Fremont River, and over on the side of that is where they decided we'd stop and camp. There's a group of us where we camped there, and it all cleared up during the night till it was a nice, clear, sunny day this day. Because it was so stormy and windy the night before, some of the guys went around and gathered up stuff to build them shelters out of. This is a view of their shelter that they rigged up. Some of them didn't worry about it. I don't know, this is some sort of horsing around that's going on. This is another shelter. These cliffs are along the road, and the guys wanted to stop and climb up them and slide down because they looked like the stuff would be slippery like the sand dunes, but it didn't turn out that way. This is where they're trying to come down. Our last stop here was at Goblin Valley, and as we were driving in over this dirt road, the sand had drifted all in there, and we had to walk for about a mile to get here. As I look back on it now, I don't think this is such a good idea. This is our spring vacation trip for 1959, and it was held March the 26th through the 28th in 1959. Our objective was to go down and see the construction work going on at the Glen Canyon Dam. This is looking from a viewpoint under the bridge, which was constructed before the dam was begun, and those yellow silos up there are where they store the cement for making the concrete. And someplace over on the there's a little platform down there, and that's where the cement mixer will be built. This is looking down from the bridge at the actual construction site, and in the background is what they call a cofferdam, which blocks the river off, and then they have two large tunnels that divert the river around this construction site. And there's another cofferdam on the lower side, and they must have had some problems because the water has leaked in, and at this time they were trying to pump it out. This is a view looking over where you can see the keyway that they're digging in the wall to support the dam. The two orange towers have cables that reach across the dam, and trolleys go on over those and lower things down to the dam site. And this one in the foreground goes down sort of along the wall, and that one is what's used to transport personnel down to the dam site. This is a view looking at the diversion tunnel that diverts the river around the dam site, and down in the foreground is the lower cofferdam. This is another view looking back at the keyway and the cement silos. It's just a view of the bridge. This is the bunch of us that were on that trip. After we left the dam, we drove over to Cottonwood Canyon, which turns north off of US 89 just east of the Paria River, and you drive up there a ways and hike up the river to the ghost town of Paria. And this is hiking up the Fremont River. I think we have to cross the river 7 times going up. This is looking at one of the buildings. This is the only block building in Paria. I've looked and looked in recent trips to try to find this thing here, and it must have just washed away because it's just not there anymore. This is some of the other buildings and things that are there at Paria. This is the close-up of the rock building. Up in the background you can see a dark hole, and that was where the mine was. And this building here was used to process the ore. They're trying to get gold. This is some more of the houses that are there at Paria. And we found this porcupine up the tree there. There's a close-up view of him. You can see a little of his hair sticking up there. This is what some of the cliffs on the side of the canyon look like. They couldn't find a way to get up on top of the arch here, but they're up on top of the cliff behind it. We went up through Escalante to Boulder and then out through the Burr Trail to the Circle Cliffs and up through Capitol Reef to get home. This is our 1960 trip, which was April the 14th to 16th in 1960. And we went through Parowan down to Cedar City and a few other places, finishing up down at St. George before going on. And in Parowan Canyon, there's this whole part of the canyon that's covered with pictographs. This is some more of them. This view sort of shows you how widely spread they are on this mountain here, how high up they go. We went to what's known as Iron Mountain, and this is a coke oven that was there to get coke for the iron kiln for refining iron, and this is the first iron smelter in Utah. This is a view of what's left of the iron smelter. This is a view looking up at Iron Mountain. Along the road here, there's a lot of volcanoes, and this is looking up at one of the lava flows from the volcanoes. The mountain here is one of the volcanoes. We hiked up to one of the volcanoes, and this is looking at the rim. These are pictures looking off into the country from there. This is looking down from the top of a volcano down to where our cars are parked at the side of the road. As you'll see in a lot of these trips, our green station wagon. Along the road here is another movie set, and I forget the movies that were shot here, but this looks like it's a picture of a mission. These are some other pictures of it that are, it's pretty run down. It is sturdy enough for us to climb around in it. There were some other things in that movie set, and one of them was that they burned a town down in one of the movies, and all the burned ruins were there, and I guess it didn't warrant a picture. But our next place, we went down to St. George, and this is Brigham Young's summer home in it's his winter home in St. George. At that time, they were doing a lot of research in supersonic flight and stuff, and they had all these tracks that they raced things along. And this is one of the cars they used to test supersonic effects on airplanes. And this was sitting out at the side of the road. The research site was up on the top of one of these mesas. One of our objectives here was to find some Indian ruins that were in Zion's National Park, and they're not in the park proper. You have to hike up to them. We got up there, and there's no place along the road to camp, and we'd been communicating with the fellow down here, and he told us about this spot here where there's a little roadway going up here and a big flat spot up on top of this rock, and that's where we camped. On the way up there's a ghost town, and this is the cemetery. Another view of the cemetery with some of us looking around. If I can read my writing right, this is town was called Shanesburg. This is the only building that's still standing, and there are several foundations that you can see, but this is the only building. From the size of it, it must have been a hotel. There wasn't much inside that you could tell what it was. Along the trail going up there, there's this petrified log that's laying right at the bottom of the cliff. This is stopping along the creek to have lunch. This is the group of us there at lunch. I can't really tell from this picture whether there are Indian ruins up under that cave or there was a little water hole. This is looking up at the cliff, and if you look closely in the edge of the shadow, just to the right of the left-hand tree, you can see the doorway into the Indian ruins. This is the main part of the Indian ruins that we were hiking up to see. On the way home, we had to stop at the pink sand dunes as usual. This is just a view taken off there at the pink sand dunes to get an idea of what they're really like. This is our first encounter with dune buggies, and these were running around all over while we were there, but never very close to where we were. This is another view of one of them rolling over the sand. We always had to stop at the tallest Indian. This is a picture of a horny toad that the guys caught and wanted to take home, but some place between here and home, the thing either got out of the car or something. We never did find it. This is a group of us that were there. This is our trip for 1961, which was March 30th and the 31st and April the 1st of 1961. And we had car trouble on the way down here. My generator went out and we were driving in the middle of the night, so we had to wait at Panguitch for the service station and garages to open, so we lost a lot of valuable time. And as we were driving down the road, it had snowed about an inch at night, and we hit a slick spot and slid off the road. That cost us a little more time, but we finally got to our destination, which was Coyote Creek. And this is just a view along the road getting there. This is a view of what some of the places were like that we had to get through, and these canyons were filled with tumbleweeds. In addition to fighting the tumbleweeds, we had to wade most of the time. On this trip, I took Jim because it appeared that I was going to have to move to New York for my work, and I wanted to take him on at least one of these trips. Turned out this wasn't the best one because of the hard hiking that had to go on. But my brother Tom came along with it this time, and he brought his son Alan also. We got down to Jacob Hamlin Bridge, where there was some good water spring, and camped there. We were a little slow getting up the next morning, and this is a scene cooking breakfast and getting ready to take out for the day. This is cooking our bread for the morning. We always use these reflector ovens. These next few slides are all pictures of the Jacob Hamlin Bridge. This is a view taken from the other side. Not far down the canyon is this next bridge, which is Coyote Bridge. These are views of the Coyote Bridge. This one is looking from the other side. The guys found these traps around there, so they set them, and we caught this little fellow, which is a desert rat, and they took him home. That's how we found out what it was. In some places we thought the rocks ought to have a little extra support. These are pictures taken of the creek and canyon as we're going down the river. Some more pictures along the river. We had to do quite a bit of wading down here also. As we were coming down the canyon, our path was blocked by a lake. And we finally, Tom found some trees and stuff and fashioned a bridge so we could get across there. And this is the waterfall that's coming down from where the wall slid in and caused a dam to back up this lake. This is looking at the lake and the rocks that had slid off the mountainside causing this dam. Nobody told us about this, and I think it must have just happened. This is another view of the water coming off of the dam. The dam occurred right at this arch here, which is called the Jug Handle Arch. Most of us turned back at this time, but Tom and his son Alan and one other boy went on down to the Escalante River to the last arch that's down there. This is another picture of that Jug Handle Arch after we climbed up the side of the mountain to where it was. This is looking back at where the dam is forming the lake, is taken from up there at the Jug Handle Arch. These are pictures Tom took down at the Escalante Arch at the junction of the Coyote Creek and the Escalante River. You can see the river in this picture here, and Lake Powell, when it's high, comes up a little past this point, and they build a trail that goes up so you can get up beyond the lake and get over to this arch. I didn't remember these fish or make any record of it, but they must have got them in the Escalante River. The sand here, the river bottom, is real sandy, and if you stand in it and just start wiggling your feet and shifting your weight, you'll sink right down into it like quicksand. It's easy enough to get down there, but coming back out is another story. Here they are struggling to get out. This is a picture of the group of us as we're ready to come home. In the front, the Alan is on the right and Jim is next to him. Oh, on the way home, as we were traveling up to Boulder, and again we chose to go over the Burr Trail to come home, we found a guy that had slid off the road, and so we stopped and helped him get on the road, so we returned our good deed. And I made a note here that never start out on the Burr Trail after noon. This is our spring vacation trip for 1962, and it was on April 19th through the 21st. And the objective was to go down to Glen Canyon Dam to see the pouring of the cement. This is the first time in 6 years that we'd duplicated the main objective of our spring vacation trip. This is looking over to the side, and you can see that cage that goes down there for lowering men down to the bottom to work. This is a footbridge that goes across the canyon 700 feet above the water. And I don't know what happened to my pictures that are looking straight down through that floor, which is not much more than a chain link fence. And some of the guys, we had a hard time getting to move past that edge of the cliff. This is a picture of Jim out on the middle of the bridge. These are pictures of the dam under construction from off of the bridge, and if you'll notice that the water is backing up behind it, and this I think is the first time that they built a dam where they started filling the reservoir before the dam was completed. This is taken from the observation point below the bridge, and you can see the cement mixer that was here, where on the other pictures of the dam they just had this shelf dug out. This is a picture of the diversion tunnel, and they had to control the rate at which the river was backing up, so a lot of the water was still going around the dam. This is Cane Creek, where and this is what they call the crossing of the Fathers on the Colorado River. And we had heard that there were some good swimming holes back up a side canyon here, and we went all over the top there, and we could never find them, but some of the guys went down in below, and they finally located the swimming holes. This is guys getting ready at the diving platform. Let's see, is that? This is another view down in the swimming hole. Here's one of them getting ready to jump in. This is somebody there in the background is diving in, and we got somebody else in the pool. Brought a couple of inner tubes and a raft here to go boating down there. This is my son Jim. I took him because at this time we knew that we were going to go to New York and this would be the last chance. This is the bunch of them in the swimming hole. I don't know how Jim got dressed so much, but he was down in there swimming with them. This is a stream as it's coming out into the Colorado River, and they wanted to float down here to the river, and I was a little bit concerned that they didn't get out in the river and get swept downstream, but they made it all right. This is our cooking in the morning, and this river, while we were there for about a day, rose 2 feet. And the kids wanted to sleep down by the river, and I told them, not on your life, you get up here on the sandbar. And there were some campers there, and they were camped down close to the river, so there were 3 or 4 campers out in the middle of the river the next morning. Forgot to mention that 2 weeks after we were there, some other people we knew went down there, and that whole sandbar was covered with water. On the way home, we went up Cottonwood Canyon again and stopped briefly here at Grosvenor's Arch, and then headed over west to go down to the movie set. A note that I made was that it looked like the movie set had been used since the last time we were there, and everything was in good repair, and the paint and everything was still on it. It looks most of the pictures I had here have been pulled out for other trips. Oh, this building in the background there is just a front. If you look through the windows, you can see braces and stuff back there. This is what it looked like behind that front. There was almost an insistence that these kids, they wanted to go to the pink sand dunes every time we got close to them. This is Jim. We sort of buried a couple of the guys. That's my son Jim. Tallest Indian again. Unfortunately, he's not there anymore. This picture has just been floating around, and doesn't seem to me like it belongs with this trip. but it's the only one of a group I could find. That previous one concludes our spring vacation trips, and I put them all together in the beginning of the tape because they were the most popular trip that we had. These slides will be going back to my very beginning days in scouting with Morrill Lofgreen, and I was the assistant scoutmaster to him for several years, and I got most of my training in scouting from Morrill. This is on a trip that we took to the Una Mountains. We could afford this bus because the owner of the bus line was in our ward, and he'd furnish us the buses and he'd be the driver, so all we had to do is pay for the bus expenses. We started out from Mirror Lake and hiked east, and I think we're headed over that ridge, but at some lower point. This is looking down at the lake at the top of the ridge. It was always my job to bring up the rear of the troop and see that everybody got there, and I used to have to push some of them pretty hard, and climbing up this hill I had to carry 2 extra packs. This is looking out at the lake where we camped the first night. Right here we're getting ready to move out to our next camp. On this trip we would hike for a day and camp in one place for 2 nights, and then hike the next day and stop again. This is another one of the lakes that we went by. This is looking out across the valley from another ridge. This is a couple of the guys as they were getting up in the morning. This is heading out of the Una Mountains, and this is called Hades Canyon. And this trail just goes down, 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 and boy, everybody complained about it. This is a group of us as we're waiting for the bus to come and pick us up. One of the things that we did was this survival hike, and I don't know whether to tell the whole story here or let it be a surprise, but what we did was to blindfold the guys when we took off in the cars, so they try to drive around and fool them as to what canyon we were going up. Didn't always work, but they couldn't bring anything except what we specifically told them they could bring, and one of the things they could not bring was any food, that we'd supply them with 1 item of food. When they got up here and the cars had all gone, we'd have them set up their camp, and one of the guys would come over to get their item of food, which would be a live chicken. And they'd have to kill the chicken and clean it and then cook it over the spit like Morrell's doing here. I think most of them ate their chicken raw. They never did get a fire good enough or wait long enough to get it cooked. I remember one of the guys, he took the chicken and tucked it under his arm and petted it and says, "Can't we starve and take it home as a pet?" But I don't know how good of a pet it would have made. I knew a fellow that was in the egg business, and when we were going on these trips, I'd contact him ahead of time, and he culled his hens about every 2 weeks, and he'd save me some hens and sell them to me for 50 cents a piece, and that's the chickens we had. This is a group picture taken at night. The next morning we'd probably have to build up the fires and finish cooking the chicken so they could eat the rest of them. And what we'd do is hide the cars and give them a compass direction and tell them to go find the cars. In one place that we had, there was a cut in the road, and we could hide the cars behind the cut, and they couldn't see them until you got right on top of them. We did this several times. You can't do it too often because you got to have new guys every time. This is the only set of pictures I could find. This is Camp Kiesel in the winter. We always took a winter trip someplace, and this year we took it up here to Camp Kiesel. And apparently we had some problems with the cabin we were in when we built the fire. It just filled the cabin up with smoke, so we had to move to another one. This is a close-up of the lodge at Camp Kiesel. We weren't allowed to stay here, though. And we have a little snow fun here trying to ski. You can't really tell it from here or any of the pictures, but that's all we had were just strap binders. One of the objectives of this trip was to play games and see if anybody could stay up all night. I think on my particular note said that we went to bed about 3 a.m. We participated in all of the camporees and those type of activities that were carried on in the council. And this particular year we made these teepees for our shelter, and what they're made out of is several layers of paper glued together. I don't think they would stand up for more than one trip. This is a picture of our camp. We did a lot of lashing in those days, and we used to practice with these models of doing the lashes and learning how to do the lashes. This is a model of a bridge, and we actually built a bridge similar to this over one of the little creeks. I don't have a picture of it though. This is a picture of our tower that we built at the camporee. Another view of the tower. This is a trip that we took up to Idaho, to Soda Springs, Idaho. And we're here at what's known as Hooper Springs, and it's a naturally carbureted spring. So we took some punch concentrate along and made our punch using this water. We went to a sawmill up there, but I think the guys had more fun on the sawdust pile than they did at the mill. We also went to a logging camp, but I didn't find any pictures of it. This is the Monsanto Chemical Company at Soda Springs, and they manufacture metallic phosphorus that's used in, I don't remember all of the things, but one of the interesting facts is that they used more electricity here than the entire city of Salt Lake. This is our trip to Red Castle Lake. I can't remember whether the guy let me borrow this truck or whether he hauled us up there and came back and got us. That previous trip we took in 1956, and this particular trip is our summer vacation trip up to Red Castle Lake, primarily to do fishing, but the fishing wasn't very good. We had built one single-wheel deer carts, and it seemed to me like that you could carry an awful lot of weight on these carts, and so I said, well, we'll take these and we'll take all of our food and stuff on it, and you guys just carry your packs, and that'll make it a little easier. And I really got the shock of my life when I got there and found out that we had more weight in worms than we did food. This is coming up the canyon with Red Castle in the background. I don't know why you don't see the redness of the rocks in these pictures. Now this is getting a little closer to Red Castle. This is Red Castle in the background with Red Castle Lake in the foreground. This is the lower Red Castle Lake. We were up here for 8 days, so we had plenty of time to look around, especially because the fishing wasn't very good. This is a picture as we're, I think it's Lower Redcastle, as we're going up to Upper Redcastle. Now this is the group as we're hiking up. This is Upper Redcastle Lake here. This is the water that's coming down into Redcastle, and it runs out of a lake called Gravy Lake, and that's where we found our best fishing. Now they always have to stop and slide down the snow. This is looking back at Redcastle. This is up on the hill looking down, and the little lake on the left-hand side is Gravy Lake, and that's Upper Redcastle, and you can barely see Lower Redcastle down in the bottom there. And Lower Redcastle Lake is in an elevation of 11,000 feet, and the guys, when we got there, boy, they went tearing off to go swimming, and they come out as fast as they went in and never touched the water again. This is another view of one of the lakes there. This is the valley on the east side of Redcastle, and we hiked up here to see if the fishing was any better, but not too much. This is another view of those lakes. We hiked up on top of one of the ridges there, and this is a picture looking down. All of the meadows had plenty of flowers in them. Taking pictures close up of the flowers was a real chore with the camera I had. I have a +3 diopter lens I put on the front of the camera, and then there was a chart that told me how many inches and where to set the focus, and that's the way we had to do it. This is a bunch of us as we were getting home. Every one of these trips, whenever you get out, the first store that they come on gets a land office business for ice cream. This is known as Endless Cave, and it's in the cliffs just north of Ogden, and we went up there several times. This is one of the trips that we took. There's no real big caverns or anything in here, and at places you sort of just inch yourself away along the walls. This is looking down at some of the guys that are below us. These are some of the stalactite formations that are there. Most of them have been broken off. In the mouth of this cave, there's one big heavy column, and if you got a 100-foot rope, you tie it onto that column, and then you throw it as hard as you can throw it, and it'll fall right down into the cave. And that's our rope hanging down there, and other people have got these wires, I guess they've left hanging in there permanently, because in places that's the only way you can get down in. This is down in one of the larger caverns. This is what we looked like when we came out. This is our booth in the 1959 Scoutorama. We had been studying optics, and as a troupe we were building our own reflective telescope, Newtonian telescope. On the bottom right there is our mirror that we're grinding. At the top we've got a refracting telescope, and these displays on the sides illustrate how different lenses affect the light as it passes through them. This is our main display showing the Newtonian telescope design. What we have on the table are all the grinding compounds with glass samples out there showing what the effect of each one of them is. The diagram in the top is a Cassegrain telescope, and these displays here display some of the aberrations in lenses. The one in the foreground displayed chromatic aberration, and the one in the background displayed spherical aberration. The next year we went back to the Scoutorama with our finished telescope and with some other optical instruments that we had built from kits that we purchased from Edmund Scientific. One of the things that we did do were to make cylindrical lenses with a power of 2 magnification, so that the guys could print their first name on one line and their second name on another line, and when you look through the mirror you tilt it one way to see their first name and tilt it the other way to see their last name. This is our summer trip in 1961, and this canyon you see up here with all the lakes in it is Henry's Fork, and down below that is King's Peak. And King's Peak was 13,400 and I didn't write it down, something feet high, and that was our goal, is to get to King's Peak. It's just hiking up the trail of Henry's Fork. Cooking here. This is a look at King's Peak in the background there, and we're going to go up that draw that's right below it. This might be a sheep herder's camp up there on the meadow. There's just some of the guys at the camp. The trail that goes up to King's Peak goes up way over on the left-hand side and around this mountain and up the back side. So instead of going all the way around there, we hike up this rock slide. This is going up the rock slide. looking back at Henry's Fork from the top of the rock slide. This is another view looking back. This is another view looking in another direction from that saddle. This is another view out from the saddle. This is looking forward. King's Peak, the tall one, the highest one, is the one in the background. So we have to hike over this one. There are actually pictures from two different trips to King's Peak, and I didn't try to separate them, but this is on the top. The second time we were up there, they'd put up a survey marker that you can see down there at the base of the rock pile. These are views looking around off of the top of King's Peak. This is a view looking back as we're coming home. Incidentally, King's Peak is the highest mountain in Utah. Rather than hike over the top with all the boulders and stuff you have to go across, we decided we'd cut across this face, and I'm not so sure that that was such a safe idea, although we did make it. I think these are the sago lily flower. The end of another trip. I can't remember exactly which year it was, but one year we had extremely hard winter with deep snows up in the mountains, and the deer were starving, and so we were trying to help out by hauling hay out in the hills for the deer to eat. When we were going up here, almost any place we looked, you could see deer, and This is a big buck that's going down over there alongside the railroad tracks. About in the middle of the picture on this side of the road, you can see some more deer. This is a zoom in on those deer that we could see down there. I don't know whether this is hay we just left there, but this is deer eating hay that was left by somebody. Well, they've seen us. While we were out taking the hay, we found a lot of deer up there that had starved to death. This is the deer we had brought back. And they didn't care where they got their feed. You can see a deer up on top of this haystack. Any deer that were eating off of that haystack, and I climbed up there and on top of the haystack. I just sat there and waited, and pretty soon the deer came back. Jumped up on the haystack with me.